Hey everyone, and welcome. Have you ever just, stopped and wondered what makes our world actually work? Well, today we're going to do just that. We're diving into our natural environment, from the tiniest living thing all the way up to our own place on this amazing planet. Let's get right into it.
So let's start with a really simple question. What's the difference between you and a rock? I mean, it sounds kind of silly, right? Obviously, you move, you eat, you grow. A rock just kind of sits there. But if we go deeper, what are the official scientific rules that separate something that's living from something that's not? Let's break it all down.
To sort this out, scientists have a sort of biological checklist. See, to be officially considered alive, an organism has to tick off 7 specific boxes. These are known as the 7 vital functions of life.
And here they are. Now, how do you remember all 7? Easy. Just think of the name MRS-GREN. Each letter stands for one of the functions: movement, respiration, sensitivity, growth, reproduction, excretion, and nutrition. If something can do all 7 of these things all by itself, then congratulations, it's alive.
Okay, but what about a curveball, like a virus? This is where it gets really interesting. A virus is kind of like a biological pirate. It can't reproduce or do most of this stuff without hijacking a living cell from a host. And because it can't check off all 7 boxes on its own, it ends up in this weird scientific gray area. Generally, it's considered non-living.
All right, so we know what's alive. But with millions of different species out there, how in the world do we keep them all straight? Well, scientists use a system called classification. The best way to picture it is like a giant, incredibly detailed family tree for every living thing on Earth, grouping them all based on what they have in common.
The biggest branches on this tree are called kingdoms. You definitely know the big ones, like plants and animals. But there are also fungi, which are super different from plants, by the way, and these massive kingdoms of tiny microscopic life, like bacteria. For today, we're going to zoom in on just one, the animal kingdom.
Okay, Mythbuster time. This is a super common mix-up I want to clear up. You see them in your house, they're both small, they both got a bunch of legs, but are spiders actually insects? What do you think?
The answer is a definite no. Now, they're related. They're both arthropods, but spiders are actually arachnids. And you can see why right here. Just look at the chart. Count the legs. Insects have 6 legs and 3 body parts. Spiders, on the other hand, have 8 legs and just 2 body parts. It's a perfect example of how these little details are everything when it comes to classifying life.
So once a thing is alive and we know where it fits on the family tree, how does it stay that way? Well, it's all a constant game of survival. You've got to find food, you've got to avoid becoming food, and you have to thrive where you live. So let's check out the rules of that game.
The absolute key to survival is adaptation. This could be a physical thing, right? Like a polar bear's thick white fur that keeps it warm and hidden in the snow. Or it could be a behavior, like birds flying south for the winter. But the most important thing to remember is these aren't choices organisms make. These adaptations develop over thousands and thousands of generations.
But where does all the energy to survive even come from? Well, for almost all life on this planet, it starts right here with this recipe: photosynthesis. Plants are basically magical chemists. They use sunlight to turn carbon dioxide and water into sugary food. And as a bonus for us, they release the oxygen we need to breathe. They are the ultimate producers. They literally power the whole planet. And that energy doesn't just stop with the plant. Oh no, it flows through the ecosystem in what we call a food chain. So the plant is the producer. It then gets eaten by a primary consumer, let's say a herbivore, like a rabbit. And then that rabbit might get eaten by a secondary consumer, like a fox. It's a straight-up transfer of energy from one level to the next. Which brings us to a very, very important consumer, us. Humans have a bigger impact on this planet than any other species, period. We're not just living in the environment, we are actively changing it. And that leads us to something that trips a lot of people up. The greenhouse effect itself is not a bad thing. In fact, it's essential. It's this natural blanket of gases that keeps Earth warm enough for life to exist. The problem is global warming. That's what happens when our human activities pump extra greenhouse gases into the air, basically making that blanket way too thick and trapping too much heat. And we can get even more precise. Global warming is talking about one specific symptom, that long-term rise in Earth's average temperature. Climate change is the bigger picture. It's the full diagnosis. It includes the warming,
Yeah, but also all the other knock-on effects, like changing rain patterns, more extreme weather, the whole shebang.
So, how do we measure our own personal impact in all this? We use this idea of a carbon footprint. It's basically the grand total of all the greenhouse gases that our actions create, from the power we use in our homes to the food we buy at the store. And the goal for everyone is pretty simple. Make that footprint as small as possible.
Now, I know this can all sound a little daunting, a little overwhelming, but here's the really good news. Since we are a huge part of the problem, that means we can also be the most powerful part of the solution. So let's look at how we can do that. I'm sure you've heard of the 3 R's, but have you ever really thought about why they're in that specific order? It's a hierarchy. The absolute most powerful thing you can do is to reduce. Just use less stuff to begin with. Then, reuse things as many times as you can. Recycling is amazing, but it should really be the last resort for what's left over.
And please remember, you are not in this alone. Protecting our planet is a team sport. It starts with you, with your daily choices. But it scales up to protected places like nature reserves, which act like safe havens for wildlife. And it happens on a global scale with big organizations working on conservation. Every single level counts.
So, that brings us to the end, but it's really more of a beginning, isn't it? After everything we've talked about, from what it means to be alive to our impact on the climate, I want to leave you with this one question to really think about. What is one small, totally doable change that you will make for our planet this week?
If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe.